Good morning, Coffee Moaners.
Good morning, Coffee Moaners. Welcome to Coffee Moaning. If this is your first time here, we are here through Monday through to Saturday, and our channel has many other things for you to enjoy.
We've been on something of a hiatus. Those who know the channel very well, those who follow us, we tragically on Friday lost our dear Chi-Chi, who's one of our cockapoos. It all happened, as is the way with all these things, quite quickly, it feels. So we obviously pulled off air. We didn't put any of the content out that we'd normally put out at the weekend. Nadia posted a Nadia Unfiltered yesterday about, I could only listen to the beginning because I started to fall apart listening to the rest, but I will listen to it in more detail. And I've recorded a mental health download about the same thing.
And I just wanted to say, because this is very much for all our regular visitors here, we'll get into the news in a minute. We've taken such comfort. Mark and I have read so many of your messages underneath, and I really love that people could share about their grief back and forth as well. And actually in the video I did say I almost feel guilty for feeling so sad about my dog when I'm so sad about the world and about what people are going through in Palestine, and just the care that we were able to give her and the care we were able to give our children and our family and our friends around losing her. And I couldn't help but draw parallels the whole time to how in Palestine you can't do that with a human being. I can't help it. Everything feeds into everything, doesn't it? And I shared that a bit within the video yesterday, and honestly I thank you so much for the messages, and we are going to read every single one of them. I started to reply to some of them with voice messages, and I don't know if they got through, but I'm going to double check because it's a new function on YouTube. So
Maddie drew my attention to the fact that Chi-Chi passed away on Mental Health Awareness Day on Friday, and I was going to be doing something about, I think the topic of the year was being overwhelmed. So I have recorded something that's going to land later today, and likewise if you want to share your experiences, your thoughts and feelings, then we will, as Nadia says, go through all of them.
People that have pets and understand, if you're not a pet person, it's like I'm not a dog person, but I loved our dogs. It's difficult to understand, but they are a part of the family. Our kids are totally devastated, inconsolable, because she was here since they were little, so it has been a big thing. Yes, so thank you. But now on to
the news today. Obviously it's a big news day today. Hostages released on both sides of the conflict. We're going to be talking about what feels like obviously huge celebrations in Israel, huge sigh of relief, if you like, from the Israeli government, the families of the hostages. And of course, for anyone who's taken hostage, this is a moment to be celebrated and cherished, to get your loved ones back. Not quite the same can be said about the parallel release of Palestinian hostages. So we're going to look at that contrast. We're going to explore that. We're also going to, not surprisingly, tickle around the edges of, now that the hostages have been released, the Israeli hostages have been released, to what extent can we now trust this peace deal? Can we trust Israel, or do we need to actually potentially prepare for a less obvious war of attrition as potentially Israel and the supporters of Israel seek to cover up, make tidy, make neat, and control the narrative pushing forward? So I want to talk about that. And part of that actually is our second story, which we've got in the title, which is Labour's anti-Semitism training that they want to introduce into our universities
and primary schools.
So, again, this is our education minister, herself a fully paid up member of the Labour Friends of Israel, talking about how our government wants to manage the narrative. And I think it's really important to understand, whilst anti-Semitism exists, Islamophobia exists, are they given the same equivalence? Are they given the same emphasis? And in what ways can the managing of something like anti-Semitism also be used to manage the narrative? Okay, and as Anywhere Session says, Netanyahu has already said that the campaign is not over. Of course.
It's just another stage of torture.
Yeah.
We've got the hostages back now, and they haven't stopped for a single day anyway. So.
And we're also going to be talking about one of Palestine's bravest journalists. I pronounce his name very badly. Saleh, is it? Saleh. A lot of you will have seen the footage that we shared on the day that the ceasefire was first announced, his celebratory posts, he's been reporting throughout the conflict, and tragically, he was killed yesterday by execution by one of the many gangs and organizations that Netanyahu has himself said he's funded and supported and armed. So
to increase the hell and to increase the horror and to keep things stirred up so that they can keep that boot tight on the necks. So a lot there, guys. If you could please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, which feels so sick, doesn't it, with everything we're talking about? But with a mainstream media that only wants one narrative pushed out the entire time, both ours and our channel and other independent channels need these videos to go out. We always say we don't do copyright, we don't do anything. You can screen record, you can do anything with this content and share it however you can.
Yeah, I'm just going to flick through some of the headlines that are obviously everywhere. I think Donald Trump is maybe now speaking in the Knesset to the Israeli government. Let's not forget the Knesset, which is the Israeli government run by wanted war criminal and two of the most extremist terrorist settlers you could hope to. Illegal settlers, of which one of them was also a terrorist.
The only sanctions that have been put on Israel are on Ben-Gvir and Smotrich.
So these are some of the headlines that have been around this morning, which is important to look at the other side of this. My heart is broken as Palestinians begin searching the Gaza rubble for their dead. Again, in terms of the mainstream media, only really The Guardian and The Independent giving any airtime to the actuality of the experience of what it means to be Palestinian. This idea of, oh, it stopped. Oh, I posted a reel yesterday. You know, if I had a pound for every person who said, well, why do we need to protest? Why do you need to keep protesting? You know, the ceasefire has happened. Just because they've stopped dropping the bombs doesn't mean that the apartheid, the oppression, the occupation, the control, and the deaths
and the war crimes that still have to be, people have to be held accountable.
Doesn't wipe the slate clean.
The march was extraordinary on Saturday. It was huge. It was so incredible.
Well, shall I show? I've got that reel there.
So peaceful and solid, and met so many amazing people. I know there was quite a few of you there, wasn't there? But we never bump in. But we dash about all over the place because we're filming and like talking to all sorts of different people. But we don't tend to just sort of march in one way. We're in and out of the crowd and doing chats and interviews.
Where we did intercept Miss Anne Harriman quite a bit as well. The other thing is, we did meet a few people. I was having a really bad day. I mean, I was so pleased we went, but it was again in the aftermath of everything we were going through, the state of the world and this crisis. It was
really depressed.
I was in a really bad place. So apologies if I seemed a bit morose to anyone we did meet. I'm going to play you this. I've taken the music off my reel because it's commercial, and this is some imagery that we took from the event.
Oh, it's music.
It's my music. It's Viper music. Great. Huge flag.
That went 70 kilometers.
Remember him?
Yeah, we met him.
head off Waterloo Bridge. And just in terms of the coverage of it, I don't know if anyone got this sense of it. News Cord, that brilliant Instagram account. The Independent, News Cord says, reported tens of thousands of pro-Palestine protesters marched through London to mark 2 years of war in Gaza. BBC, tens of thousands attend pro-Palestinian march in London. As News Cord say, Western media say tens of thousands instead of hundreds of thousands or 500,000, severely downplaying the level of support for Palestinian liberation in London. An estimated 500,000 people took to the streets in a peaceful demo for Palestine liberation. And a
majority of totally white people, isn't it? That's like people think. I loved how many very frightfully English people came up to me and said, "Thank you so much for everything you're doing." I said, "Thank you. Thank you. You know, you've got no connection here other than your human heart." It was just...
But they're not allowed because Tommy Robinson calls them elites.
And the amount of children, you know, hundreds and hundreds of children on shoulders, children in buggies. You know, there was no sense of aggression at all, except right at the beginning when a group of Zionists, Mark was actually...
I've got some footage of it. It will be going, I will be popping it up on one of our vlogs, but there was some footage of a kind of counter-protest dash of about 20 Zionist protesters, 2 or 3 of them incredibly violent and aggressive with the police. But I noticed that it took the police a while to get on top of it. It had to be the crowd that kind of was screaming, "Careful, everyone, Zionist," you know, and they were holding up signs and they tried to cause
we saw no trouble and we were darting back and forth all the way along. But then when we came over Waterloo Bridge, there was another group of, not many though. Surprised, there was 500,000 of us and maybe there was, I don't know, 100? 150 playing as loud as you can imagine, "We are the champions." And I wanted to say, I just gave the peace signs and went back. I wanted to say, you are the champions of a genocide. So I don't know how people can be playing out "we are the champions" when there is so much death and destruction and then sleep at night. But
it's a weird one.
Different folks, different strokes.
Okay, so, and as I said, so the headlines this morning: all living captives now freed, say Hamas, as Trump is due to address the Knesset. That's another story that we'll talk about later. Gaza, all 20 Israeli hostages released by Hamas, as Trump declares every country is dancing in the streets. Can he verify that? Can he verify that? This is an image that was posted on Twitter from within the Knesset. There are MAGA-style hats all over the Knesset, special MAGA-style hats being handed around and worn by audience members at the Knesset. But this is the headline that I want us to talk about as well. So whilst obviously, you know, everyone is cheering and celebrating and excited about the hostages being released, which is as it should be for anyone who's released from captivity, the Israeli authorities have said to Palestinian prisoners, hostages rather, sorry,
because they have not had, many of them have not been charged with anything. They've been rounded up by their thousands since 2023. And, you know, we're eking them out bit by bit. But listen to this. So
this is the headline: "We are watching you everywhere. Israel warns families of Palestinian detainees set to be freed not to celebrate." And let me give you a bit more detail on this. So this is being reported from Tel Aviv. Outside an Israeli prison in the occupied West Bank, a gathering point central Ramallah, anxious Palestinian families anticipate the release of their relatives. But according to the deal...
Of course, you never know. They can change their mind at the last second.
According to the deal, nearly 2,000 Palestinian hostages were due to be released on Monday, including 250 serving life sentences and 1,700 who've been detained since 7th of October 2023, among them 22 children. Israel is also due to hand over the remains of 350 dead Palestinians they've been holding since 2023. But alongside Offa prison, Israel... 350 dead Palestinians they've been holding.
Dead?
Yeah, like the remains.
I didn't know that many.
Yeah. Like Hamas are handing the remains of some hostages.
Right.
Yeah. Alongside the prison, which is called Offa, Israeli drones dropped leaflets warning family members and supporters against expressing any support of affiliation to a terrorist organization, adding ominously, "We are watching you everywhere." So essentially, the Palestinians are not allowed to celebrate the release of any of their family members or relatives or friends. And if you demonstrate any support for, again, the devil is in the detail. When they say here, and this is what one has to wrap one's head around when we flip to the story of how Labour is going to do anti-Semitism training. Remember, when they say support of affiliation to a terrorist organization, that's open to subjective interpretation, because we have a situation with all Palestinians that if any Palestinian exerts any self-defense of their family, their livelihood, their home, their land, they are automatically deemed a terrorist. So what they're saying there is, don't celebrate and don't ever resist again. It's as simple as that. I don't feel...
And that's why we will see, you know, over and over again, the horrendous videos of the settlers coming at old women, spitting in their faces, kicking young men, holding guns to people's heads. I saw a teenager yesterday just randomly holding a gun in this elderly man's head. They can do nothing because that's seen as resistance. So you must be able to have a gun put at your head. You must be able to watch your daughter being sexually assaulted. You must be okay with the hijab being ripped off your grandmother's head. You must be okay with that, because that would be seen as to push against that is resistance. So, you know, it can cover so much. And let me just remind you, everybody, just one more time, Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant have warrants out for their arrest for war crimes, just to remind you. And Ben Gvir has been found guilty in the past for terrorism, has he not?
Oh,
in his own country.
Yeah.
Ben
He was
Gvir,
considered too
who runs
extreme to join the
prisons,
IDF.
He was too extreme to join the IDF. So these are people these are the people that have the boots on the necks of these Palestinians that have already been through so much. So don't anyone say to me, are you happy about the ceasefire? Don't anyone say to me, oh, are you going to be able to just stop talking about this now? No.
So just going back to Trump declaring every country is dancing in the streets, where I'd like to correct him there is Palestinians aren't allowed to dance in the streets.
Yes.
But
they're not real. Don't forget, they're not humans. They're not humans.
Just a few more details. It's important this gets reported because none of the mainstream media are reporting this anywhere.
Is this in the Independent?
This is the Independent. Families of those slated to be released told the Independent of confusion and a lack of information surrounding the release, particularly amid reports in the Israeli media that 135 of the life sentence prisoners will not be permitted to return to their families, but will instead be deported.
To where?
So going to be deported out. They're not going back. They're not going home. They're not being returned. Well, exactly. Al Jazeera also reports that Israel imposed travel bans on 100 relatives of the prisoners, effectively separating them from their released relatives. Palestinian families also told the Independent that soldiers raided the homes of relatives on the eve of their release, warning them not to celebrate.
But what happens so often is that they just will randomly take the same amount of people. So the Palestinians will be waiting, who's going to be taken hostage now because they've released these hostages. It's insane. It's literally, we are in insanity here.
Based on the demonstrable barbarism of the Israeli government and approach and attitude to Palestinian life, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that when the Israeli authorities release any hostages, they will be sniggering and laughing into their armpits, because they know that within the switch of a day, they can take them all back in for basically
Exactly, they just take another 200 or whatever.
Will arrest you for smiling. They're going to arrest people for smiling.
I saw this really brutal two soldiers the other day dragging off this little boy. He must have been about 9. Always, there's never just one of them, is there? There's always a group. There's always like as many guns as you can imagine. So just want to reiterate to anyone who says, why are you marching? Why are you still going on about? Why are you banging on about it and all this kind of stuff? The apartheid is demonstrable even in hostage release. You know, even at this point today, which we're all kind of controlling emotion, a completely different set of rules for an occupied population. If you can't see the parallels between this and the apartheid of South Africa, and if you can't see that this speaks to the everyday living conditions of Palestinians before October the 7th, after the last 2 years of genocidal intent, you've got to understand, it doesn't all just neatly happen in the 2 years that Israel has prevented any coverage of in the world. It's not going to work that easily. However much, unfortunately, our government, current government, and all our future governments are for sure going to do everything in their power
to, you know, to Photoshop the past. There's a wonderful quote I saw yesterday by George Orwell, something about those who control the future, those who control the past, control the present, and those who control the present dictate the future. That is what's going on here. The story of history. History is being used here, even recent history.
I just want to read this out because I think a lot of people will be feeling this today, and there are people that will have been on the march. My emotions are so up and down. You feel such a peace on the marches, being around people who feel the same, and then you leave it and you feel sad again. On that, it was like nourishment yesterday being on the march, wasn't it? So, and you get nourished and reminded, you know, the Zionist group was so tiny, and the anti-genocide, anti-apartheid march was huge. And it reminds us, and this is the way to carry it through in your heart today, that we aren't crazy, that there are so many good people that are feeling the same way as us. And actually we galvanize ourselves from it. Yes, it's a sad day. It's a sad day for so many reasons today. But we have to take the nourishment. It's in there somewhere, Zoe, and then think, what do I do next? How do I talk next? What do I do next? There is actually, I've heard a lot about this. There's actually a course that you can do that's run by Palestinians on how to best continue on for the cause. And I really want to do that because I think we do get a bit lost of what can we do next,
Absolutely.
what can we say. But yeah, I hear you, and I know it is difficult.
Just
there is a kind of high to be being with people that are like-minded.
Absolutely, and a safety, and a sort of non-verbal safety as well. 10 minutes ago, just want to report this Guardian reporting: buses carrying Palestinian prisoners arrive in Gaza. The first of 38 buses carrying some of the Palestinian prisoners released from Israeli prisons has crossed into Gaza, according to the Palestinian Prisoners Information Office. This is interesting news, and this speaks to later today. There is a peace summit. I call it the Peace of Palestine Summit because it's how the West is carving up Palestine, Gaza, the West Bank. Netanyahu is going to join Trump at the peace summit. Now, as I understood it,
the one with the arrest out for war crimes.
Yes, as I saw it, I thought that Israel and I think the head of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, was going to be, but I thought Palestine, Iran, and Israel weren't allowed in, but obviously that's changed.
Has that changed now? Is Abbas in?
So I think
because of course they've decided all of this,
yes,
without referring to any Palestinians.
Yeah, I mean it's
going to get Tony Blair. He's all kinds of evil.
Yeah, it's going to get very complicated though with Abbas because whilst he is the Palestinian Authority,
yes, he's very in the pocket.
You've got to understand that a lot of us, we've expressed it. Nadia's half Jordanian. You know, frustration with the Arab nations. That, you know, some of the Arab nations are totally beholden financially and can't do anything that upsets America. We've heard that before. Sounds like Britain, doesn't it? Other Arab states, Gulf states, are so sort of rich in some ways, but also still interdependent on America and buying stuff, selling stuff, all that sort of stuff. That all of the governments in the region are compromised in entirely different ways. And my fear and my worry around this is that whilst they're bringing in Mahmoud Abbas from the Palestinian Authority,
to tick a little tiny box right at the bottom,
he's a bit of a sap insofar as he's considered by the likes of Blair, Trump, the West, as an agreeable person who's malleable, moldable, and does a good job for the West. I mean, you know, we mustn't be shy in understanding that it's like this woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize. Everyone's going, oh, it's brilliant. She was Venezuelan. Oh, it's brilliant. She was a woman. That will upset Trump. But she's a huge supporter of Trump. Dig into it. And she's as reactionary as Trump. So, you know, it's like regime change, regimes, who's changing it for who. Every regime has issues, as included. We shouldn't plow around the world saying ours is perfect, yours is shit. You know, but have a look at it. And I do think there's a lot of feeling amongst many Palestinians, which is kind of
that Abbas has done nothing.
But Abbas has done nothing. That's also part, if you look historically, that's
why he's allowed in.
And it's part of the reason Hamas took a hold in Gaza. There was a feeling of he was ineffective. And so I think we're going to meet a lot of kind of road bumps around this, this detail of the piece. Can I just ask, does anyone think that the obvious violence, the bombing, the carpet bombing, the going in with soldiers and everything like that is going to now stop? I mean, I personally think potentially it is, and I think that the war and the genocidal intent is going to become even craftier.
It's very crafty. I mean, the videos of people getting back and like, they don't know, they haven't seen, and there is just rubble. And the videos of families just looking for bones to bury, bones to bury. I mean, it is just heartbreaking. Tens of thousands of people. Imagine the smell as they go to that rubble. Just one story that I read today, of this man who's got back to his parents' house. He begged and begged and begged his parents to come to the south, and his father was a retired ambulance. You know, they're amazing, aren't they? They should be the Nobel Peace Prize winners as a group. They really should. The Civil Defence organization. But anyway, so his dad was very, very stubborn, absolutely refused, said, I'm staying in my home. Nothing is gonna take me from my home. And his son had to leave with his family to get his family safe in the south. And he got back there yesterday, and you know, his parents' house had been hit with an airstrike, I think days after he had left with his family to the south. And so he then found the skull. He found a skull, and he found an arm bone, and he took it to the crematorium to bury them. And then he saw that had been destroyed as well, and dug up and bulldozed. So he buried their skull and the arm bone next to two graves that hadn't been destroyed. That's just one person. That's just one. And we've got, how many have been displaced? And again, I was talking to Mark and Dina about this on the way to the march on Saturday. I said, the bombing, the amputations, the starvation, all of this there's such huge words and just mean so much. I said, but I always want to also talk about the displacement. It's become nothing. Displacement. We've talked about this over the last 2 years. But to lose your home, a pillow, a kettle, a cup of tea, a sink, to be able to wash, to be able to get water, that the day in, day outness of children in a tent with nothing to do, desperate to go to school. All the schools have gone. All the universities have gone.
Well, the entire
Everything's
infrastructure's
gone.
gone.
I mean, it's just dust. It's just dust. So, no, there's no celebration amongst us. We are so relieved that there's a slight, peace with the bombs not falling in the way that they did. But, the pain, the suffering, the small things and the huge things that all become one thing, that is a constant torture. And the knowledge that any one of you can be taken hostage at any point by a group of big men with big guns, marched off, taken, stripped down to your pants, walked down through your street, and taken hostage and thrown into one of Ben-Gvir's many prisons that he loves so much. That's the reality of the ceasefire, of the peace deal that everyone is celebrating, and the MAGA caps that are going everywhere. That's the reality.
And also the thing that really worries me, and I get really depressed about, is that the mainstream media in the West had zero compulsion, appetite, or interest in showing much of the awfulness that was going on and being sent out and got out by incredibly brave Palestinian journalists on the ground. Over 200 of which have been killed. So there's been a real lack of appetite to actually share or show any of the severity of what has actually happened over there.
Racism.
And so at this point, what really worries me and stresses me out a bit is that if they were unwilling to do that, and I'm going to use some really blunt journalistic terms here, and that footage was really obvious news stories. That was obvious stuff that, like it or loathe it, people would have clicked on, would have looked at, would have watched. Online paper,
if it bleeds, it leads. If it's tragic, if it's horrible,
if there was zero compulsion and interest or desire to follow that, imagine how little impulse there's going to be to home in on the Gaza Strip and the West Bank now. Everyone who's anyone. It's like I said on my reel yesterday, there's two types of people who want to move on from this now. Those who feel they've committed a genocide, have committed a genocide, and want to get away with it and want to get away from it as fast as possible and control the narrative. And then there's a whole other bunch of people, unfortunately, many of us in this chat room can think of probably several in all of our lives, who haven't wanted to be engaged, haven't wanted to say anything. And actually, it's a real inconvenience if this carries on now, because we've been offered something that allows us all to put a little bit of a bow on it, tie it, and the world's media will allow people to put that bow over the top and move on.
But they've been doing
this is the beginning of a new horror.
I mean, we only had probably 2 days where there was any talk about the starvation.
Yeah, and the rebuild is going to be awful. The rebuild is going to be complicated and shot through with colonialist Western finance, money, Gulf state opportunism.
Please, every single person, promise that you won't forget and just buy a cheap holiday on the Gaza Strip, as it looks like Mar-a-Lago in Gaza.
Wait for EasyJet, Gaza City. It'll be GZC will be the little logo, I promise you. Nick, I feel constantly sick to my stomach, zigzagging between blind rage, desperate hope, and total despair.
Me
I
too.
literally can't believe that in 2025 this is happening.
Thank you, exactly how I feel.
Imagine those people going back to Gaza to see nothing left of their homes and without family members because they've been killed, and they're supposed to just carry on. I saw footage yesterday.
The journey back, no, hardly any food, so restricted, the water exhausted, many of them without shoes. You know, it's all of that human stuff, the ongoing torture. That just, we're just all gonna forget about that now.
Roxy Voxy, my friends from North Gaza are now in the south and know there is nothing left of their homes. Their grandmother collapsed at the news. Friends cannot bear to go and see their north. I saw footage yesterday of I'm so sorry, Roxy.
Send them our love.
I saw footage yesterday of a young man wading through literally an Armageddon, a blighted landscape of just ruptured bits, the guts of buildings. And he goes around a corner and he goes around another corner, I can't remember where it was. And he falls upon his front door because his small section of this building that's been destroyed is still standing. He was kissing it. He was grateful. And immediately you were thinking, oh my God, in Palestinian terms, this guy has everything. But he has nothing.
If you just think, if you've had a leak in your home, like somebody's left the bath on and water's pouring out, it's just like, Jesus. Just like, if you think about it, Mark, just that thing,
exactly.
How all of us are like so shocked. You can ring what? I've had a leak. Oh my God, they've had a leak. And like, oh no, and my ceiling. Oh God, I'm going to have to repaint. Think about that. And then times it by 10 million billion. And every one of them is going through that.
I'm going to show you a clip now of a family returning to their neighborhood, and the explosion and the response that you see in this footage is of a family. They discover that essentially that a booby trap's been laying somewhere in amongst the rubble. But this is a family trying to find their home, trying to return home. And look what happens.
في حد ضايل مين في حد ضايل في حد.
See the amount of unexploded shrapnel, the amount
they
of
say it's going to take years to clear it.
This is not like, let's run up. I think even in our heads we're thinking, run up that rubbly road towards a rubble place, and okay, it's going to take fucking 25,000 fucking years to rebuild our homes, our lives. Hang on. All the way through, you've got the equivalent of 8 Hiroshima's worth of bombs
on the size of the East End. That's the Gaza Strip.
How much of that hasn't exploded? How many armaments will there be? Electrical currents, poisonous water. I mean, just think about how you feel some nights if you can't find a fucking pillow.
Exactly. We had 2-3 power cuts this year, didn't we? For like a couple of hours. We were beside ourselves, spoiled brats.
It's just we cannot comprehend, and so consequently, I just want to pop up this post that the Beast from the East, that wonderful
follow him,
doctor,
incredible doctor,
incredible guy. He posted this: Israel lied about 40 beheaded babies. Remember that, guys, please.
That was a lie. That wasn't true.
To justify a genocide that's killed 600,000 Palestinians. The numbers of people that have really died, like today, people all over Gaza will be dying of the consequences of everything, even though the bombs aren't dropping. People will be dying, and they won't be included in the numbers.
It's like I was talking to Samaya at Children Not Numbers, you know, the charity that I am ambassador of, and she said, they will not allow us to evacuate dying children. Right? And children are dying every day, babies, from starvation, from lack of medication, from actually, I've got a little bit of good news that I'm going to share on Instagram later about one of the children that you're all involved with, who they did manage to get out. But and they don't go down in those numbers. All the people that couldn't get cancer care, when I think of my darling friend Hannah at the moment in the Marsden and what she needs to be able to be, you know, to be able to deal with pain and to be able to deal with, you know, and I just think, you didn't get any cancer. There was no cancer care. Children were having cancer, tumorous cancers bursting out of their bodies. Are they going to be included in those numbers? No, they're not.
Michelle Norris, more children were killed in Gaza in the first 3 weeks since October 2023 than in all warfare worldwide in the last 3 years of 2020, 21 and 22 combined, Professor Finkelstein, YouTube. Never, you know.
Thank you. And so when we are watching leaders jumping about, getting caps out, MAGA caps out, you know, Starmer talking about playing a part in the peace plan, excuse us if we all feel sick to our stomachs with that.
The one thing we mustn't allow absolute knob jockeys to tell us to do is not engage in Project Fear. You know, there are going to be many smart asses. Nick Ferrari's already engaging in it. Rachel Johnson was engaging in it. I'm sure Sheila Fogarty will any minute. You know, this idea of, come on, we've got to home in on the positive. Of course, we've got to home in on the positive. It's absolutely fucking fantastic that bombs aren't still dropping. But in the relief from that and in the hope that springs from that, if you or we or anyone then seeks to go, well, let's just forget that was just a really bad 2 years. Let's push on. Then you're kicking the can down the fucking, you know, down the lane, because that shit is going to come back yet again and again and again. You know, you cannot pretend what's happened hasn't happened. Even though you've controlled the media, Israel, even though you've killed all the journalists, you cannot for a minute pretend or bullshit. You just can't do it. You can't do it. But that is what's going to happen here. And what you're going to start to see now everywhere in the gyrations of dealing with this is, you know, be celebratory, because otherwise you're not part of the fucking spirit. We want to be positive. We want to, you know, it's celebratory. Well, of course there's that. You can hold more than one fucking thought because we're not fucking morons. You know, do not be drawn down the gully of just be blindly optimistic and choose not to focus on some of the most heinous fucking war crimes in history have been committed. And unless,
that we have video evidence.
And unless
there's been, of course, much worse.
The accountability aspects as Me Too will be kicked down the road. That is how it always happens, because rebuilding always takes priority. And as we focus on the positive, it's the Boris Johnson Project
Israel is not paying for any of that rebuilding.
Imagine
Israel is not paying. The Gulf states are, America will be putting in our money from this country. Remember that. And they are an extremely wealthy country.
So a toddler goes to a party and destroys the house and walks away, and mum goes, oh, it's all right, everyone else at the party can fucking pay for that. Toddler, what happens to that toddler? What is the message that's telegraphed to the toddler walking down the street going, I just destroyed a house and I didn't have to pay for any of it?
Biggest spoilt toddler. And again, do not think that what is going on there does not affect the whole fucking world. It's put the whole world out of balance. Of course it has. Because he is rabid. He's starting wars all over the goddamn place because he's been allowed to get away with this. And that affects all of us.
Yeah. And don't forget, he has said it's not over.
It's not over. They've also said that it's not over. Yeah,
and
so
you know,
that's the other point. That's
the
really
other thing that
point.
Israel really does that's very convenient actually is they tell us exactly what their intentions are. They don't hide them. Him, Smotrich, and Ben Gvir have all said
it's not over.
We'll get the hostages, and then it's not over.
So
you know, what more do you need?
I think it would be good to pay a tribute to Salah, because this is the journalist that I was talking to you about the other day, who was one of the ones when we showed you the video that was walking down the streets because there was no internet, telling everybody that there was a ceasefire, that the war was over. His sweetness, his innocence, his belief, his joy broke my heart on that day. And anyone that was on that with us that morning, I was saying to you, wasn't I?
Of him here,
yeah, that the very first, he's 25 when the war started. He was a top table tennis player.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's where he was dead. He loved his country so much that was him. Forced into being a journalist on the ground. The first video that I ever saw of his, it was really early on. And I looked at it and I thought, because I didn't know him and I was like, oh God, why are people making these fake videos? And then I realized it was live. But it was so horrific that I couldn't believe that it was true. Of course, now we are all so desensitized that we can see things that we never even could have imagined. But it was alive, and he was running for his life, but not stopping videoing. And what breaks my heart is right at that beginning, he had the total belief that the world would make this stop because we were seeing children live, walking, dazed like zombies, blood pouring from their heads, just horrific wounds. And yet here we are 2 years later, and they finally got him. And every day he risked his life. And damn you, Western media, Radio 4, all these damn channels that kept saying, the trouble is we can't get our journalists in there. That's the problem. You see, you won't allow our press in. So we have to take everything from the IDF. Damn you all, every single one of you that said that. Because that bravery of that man, none of you have got in the end of your fingernail. Nobody's got a love for their country in the end of your fingernail, like him and like the others, risking his life. He was a top table tennis player. That's what he was going to do with his life. He loved his country. He loved his religion. But God forbid we say he loved his religion, because what will everybody think? Oh, well, probably a terrorist. Because the manipulation. He was a deeply moral man who right till the end, he broke my heart 2 days ago, didn't he, Mark? 3 days when the ceasefire. And I said, look at the sweetness in his face. He believes it. He fucking believes it. And they kidnapped him and they shot him 7 fucking times.
Just to clarify who. These were, Netanyahu has funded and supported and armed gangs. Here it's the report in the Times of Israel. Israel providing guns to Gaza gang to bolster opposition to Hamas. These are groups in the Gaza Strip that are backed by Israel, militia groups that have been funded, supported. Do you remember around the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation? It was suggested they were involved in some of the shooting of Palestinians getting aid. Netanyahu says Israel has activated some Palestinian clans to oppose Hamas. Well, what happened was he was reporting on these essentially collaborator clans in the Gaza Strip. He was captured by the gang. He was captured by one of the gangs, one of the groups, and he was executed with 7 bullets. So it's an Israeli, again, the proxy war will happen. Israel will support and agitate from within. They'll fund. It's so insidious and so hideous in its lack of subtlety, but also in its ability to...
We can all find out. They don't care.
Yeah,
he admits it, Netanyahu. He admits it.
They tell us everything.
Shit, because they can do whatever they want.
So here's some
journalists that will say, well, did he have a journalist degree?
Fuck off.
Do you know what I mean? Just fuck off. Well, these people that call themselves journalists, that to me, cares about his people, runs from the bullets, bombs. He was threatened throughout. He got direct threats all the way through that they were going to kill him. And as he said, Whatever is meant to be is meant to be.
And on that point of what makes a good journalist, remember that journalists in the West learn in the West, are taught in the West by a mainstream media supporting system. So you're going to come out thinking, I'm a fully qualified journalist and I now
tell the truth.
I now buy beetroot, organic beetroot and fair trade, and I report on Radio 4 Today's show, and I feel really good because I'm a hang on a minute. You're just spouting the same lies and manipulation that have been promoted by the mainstream media for years. Just search for the Telegraph journalist banging on the door of who was he?
Well,
banging
I'll show
on
you
the,
it tomorrow. It's the creepiest thing you've ever seen.
Is that a good journalist? Was that class
That's
journalism?
you're not even allowed to do that anymore. It's illegal to doorstep people.
You know, what makes a so-called journalist needs to be challenged. We need to unpick the system that trains our journalists so that they ask nothing. It can't be very good if we ask nothing at the moments we should be asking everything.
So are the journalists, the proper journalists, now over 250 Palestinian journalists? Palestinian journalists. Well, they're not human, are they? Now they're all dead. So now what happens? And now there's a ceasefire. Are the press going to be allowed in? Are they? Are they? Because the continued horror and torture needs to be reported on.
They didn't go to Oxford, Nadia. They didn't go to Oxford, Cambridge. They didn't go and learn a proper qualified journalist.
Because
they're not a member of the NUJ.
They're too busy here whipping up hate amongst us in this country, trying to divide people and rule people by causing another whole pile of hate here. And the confusion that is now going on with reform when they are waving Israeli flags. You report on all of that, don't you? Western journalists, because you love that kind of hate, don't you? Are you brave? Are you brave?
Over the last 2 years, the majority of mainstream newspapers in this country have taken receipt of propaganda PDF press releases from Israel and pretty much just quoted them and just printed them. They've just printed them. It's quite shocking. I'm just going to show you. This is footage of Saleh when the ceasefire was announced.
Oh my God, his sweet face.
المشاعر يعيشها كل سكان قطاع غزة بعد سنتين من العذابات المستمرة من الإبادة والنزوح والقتل والمجازر التي عاشها سكان قطاع غزة اليوم. حق لغزة أن تفرح اليوم، حق لقطاع غزة أن يفرح، حق لسكان قطاع غزة.
They doesn't have the right to So look, let me just remind you guys, what Israel cannot tolerate is a Palestinian experiencing happiness, humor, or hope. Any of those things get so under the skin of the Zionist, colonialist, white supremacist Israeli government. So what they do is they take him out. They take you out, even down to the people who've made films, have appeared in films that have been garlanded at various festivals in the West. They find you, they find your relatives, and they take you out. They have the most extraordinary
amount of data on every single
person. They take you out. They cannot tolerate a Palestinian person having hope.
See, joy is resistance. So that's what we could get to. If you're laughing, which is what we've been told really about the hostages that have been released from the Israeli torture prisons, they've been told, don't be joyful. That's resistance. To be joyful is resistance. When people say, this is what they say at Children Not Numbers. Well, why are these women still having children in this hell? Because to have a child is the greatest resistance. To bring a beautiful soul into the world is resistance. And that's another reason. And it is a war crime. And the United Nations actually, talked quite a bit about this when they defined what is going on as a genocide. The fact that Israel blew up the IVF clinic with all the embryos in there. What does that tell you?
So more births. Giving birth is Hamas.
Giving birth is
Hamas,
resistance.
is resistance. Tara B, let's just not beat around the bush here. Let's not all prettify this. Let's just keep it blunt. They've told us what they're going to do. They tell us what they do. They keep doing it. And Israel still controls the borders and restricts access.
And the food and the electricity
where's the
and the
freedom?
water.
Oh, come on. So if people, so when someone says, "Why are you still protesting? Why are you still posting? Oh, it's all over now." Tell them it's only just begun. It's only just begun. Which takes us to the absolutely, for me, chilling. Do you want to move on, or do you want to stick? Can we move on?
Move on
to the story of Bridget Phillipson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you want to play?
What's
his name? The horrible guy. Him.
No. Kushner. No, I don't want to. Yeah. Okay. So Bridget Phillipson. I'm going to play you this clip. See what you make of this. This is our education minister.
Speech champion in the Office for Students said a couple of days ago that they'd be taking a dim view of anti-Semitism on campus. You've announced today that you are funding 600 training sessions to help university staff support students and identify harassment and hate. Are those sessions going to be compulsory?
I've been clear with university vice-chancellors that I expect them to prioritise attending that training for their security staff in particular, who often manage those relationships between students and the police. This training will be commencing from this month. It is important it happens because anti-Semitism is something that we have to root out of our society. It has no place on our streets, in our communities or on campus. And that's why I expect universities to take action to make sure that their campuses, their university environments are safe places for all students, including Jewish students, who should not feel intimidated or harassed because of behaviour that's taken place on campus. And we have seen a shocking rise in anti-Semitism.
But that's training for security staff. Isn't the problem that there are people who, whatever they think they're doing, to Jewish students and staff, appear to be fomenting anti-Semitism? Isn't the point here that everybody's got to go through this training, irrespective of what their role is, if they participate in actions and demonstrations and so on that intimidate other people on campuses?
Yeah, we all have a responsibility, and all universities have wider responsibilities in tackling anti-Semitism. This training will be focused on those working directly with students, those in welfare roles, those in security roles, so that they can understand the importance of safety on campus for Jewish students.
But my point is, if you don't do it, the anti-Semite still continue being anti-Semite. It doesn't matter if the security staff are better at dealing with them. Isn't the problem that you've got to deal with the anti-Semitism rather than the management of anti-Semitism?
You have to deal with the anti-Semitism, yes, you do. And universities have disciplinary processes and should use those processes to take action. But education is important because we know that anti-Semitism, other forms of hatred will also thrive where there is ignorance, where there is misinformation, and where we allow anti-Semitic
So would you like university authorities to put everybody through some form of training, is the question I'm asking?
Universities have responsibilities as employers, and also they have responsibilities to their students to make sure that people understand what anti-Semitism is and take action against it.
Did Trevor at any point ask anything about
Is there anything equivalent happening for Islamophobia?
Trevor is so in the pocket, it frightens me.
Trevor Phillips. I used to quite like you years ago. So just
everybody's saying here, what about Islamophobia? It's the question that anyone with an inquiring brain would ask. He doesn't ask that. Maybe he does somewhere else.
The equivalence?
I don't know.
Now, what is worrying and dangerous about this as a development is it's a continuation of the same rhetoric and the same conflation that happened in the aftermath of the awful attack in Manchester. The idea is that if you are critical of Israel, critical of a genocide, critical of the treatment of the Palestinian people, you are automatically, or it's dangerously
critical of the Israeli
easy.
Government, Mark, not Israel.
Israeli
we're not
government.
allowed to be critical of the Israeli government.
It is very easy to conflate the two and therefore call it anti-Semitism. And none of that is catered for in this. None of that is catered in any of this so-called, we need to program, we need to guide, we need to steer, teach. She just said, in universities, you have a lot of people who are capable of critical thinking. They're frightened of this. They're frightened of people drawing their own conclusions. And for me, this is the thin end of the wedge. She might be talking about security personnel. This is going to become the standard practice, that there's got to be some kind of tilted teaching of what anti-Semitism is, but baked into that teaching will be, do not criticize Israel, the Israeli
and
government.
Can I just say how terrifying it must be to be a Muslim when we've seen in Palestine the absolute destruction in every way of every single thing in their lives and their religion. So the mosques are being blown up. I saw yesterday a video of a man being hauled out of a mosque and beaten by 6 IDF sticks like this, beating him for being in the mosque. So are Muslims afraid? Do they feel intimidated at all in university? And what I didn't like there was he fed her that. He was like looking after her
He was
so
massaging her there.
beautifully because he thinks everybody's stupid, right? Because he's the cleverest person in the world, is he? So, when Trump got in and went into the universities and threw anybody and everybody that he felt had been a little too vocal, anti-genocide, threw them into jail, threw them out of the country, threw them into gulags, essentially. Are we going to start tracking back for anyone that might have gone on the march or might have set up anything in the campus? Is this the beginning of that? Very, very scary. Keep your eyes open, guys, because stay awake. Because if you watch what they've done in America, that sounded very like America to me, the beginning of it. Didn't it to you, Mark?
Totally agree. Yeah, Eric Kinslayer. I worked in further education for 10 years. I was appalled by the so-called Prevent initiative. It's basically official Islamophobia.
Wow.
It's shocking. It's not about, I know a number of people are saying, but people who can be convinced. It's for people, what's the other one? Sides, not
solutions, not sides, that go into schools across the country and basically in a very, very, very gentle way. But it's quite interesting because it feels like brainwashing to me when you talk to kids for 4 hours about everything's all right when an actual genocide was going on. Very fascinating. We're going to find out more about that and tell you.
But it's a system, it's an organization that seeks to whitewash and normalize the extraordinary violence from Israel.
In our
disproportionate imbalance between Israel versus the Palestinian people. And it seeks to kind of normalize and draw an equivalence when there isn't one. It's going to be the same thing here. This is going to weaponize what is happening in every single Western country now. And this is already in day one after the hostages have been handed over, the so-called end of it. This is how the war against the Palestinians will continue. This is how the control will continue. This is how the narrative will continue. You've had your state recognized. It has to be the it now has to be the kind of state we say it needs to be, run by us, for you, maybe, but actually for rich donors in the West. And don't ever, ever criticize Israel again.
Should we read out the little list about her?
Yeah, I've got it here. So Bridget Phillipson.
It's quite interesting.
This is worrying. She's the head of, she's our education minister. So she's a Labour Friends of Israel supporter. When asked to sign a letter that was about enforcing sanctions on Israel in July this year, she didn't sign the letter. When Palestine Action was declared a terrorist organization in July, she voted yes. When she was asked to sign a letter to uphold the ICC arrest warrants against Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, she didn't sign the letter. When asked to sign a letter calling for the suspension of arms sales to Israel, she didn't sign the letter. She making BDS illegal for public bodies, second vote, she abstained. For calling for a ceasefire in the occupied Gaza Strip, 15th of November 2023, she abstained. So she hardly is neutral. She's made it very clear where her sympathies lie. She's in charge of our kids' education. And she also wants to make it even harder for anyone to homeschool. We're being controlled. We're being manipulated. We're being ring-fenced. This system is fucked. It's fucked.
There's also quite a bit of money that's changed hands, I believe. But we'll look more into that now. Yeah.
It's just despairing. It really is.
It is amazing when you go to Declassified and have a look at the money that's come into Labour. It's really interesting. So it's up for you to find that, though, if you wish to.
So call me old-fashioned, but it's hard to get excited when you see a bunch of really suspicious individuals all running around carving up land without. I haven't even heard a whisper about the West Bank. haven't
What's
heard
going on in the West Bank
a
is
whisper
horrendous.
about the West Bank. Instead, our government's claiming responsibility for the peace deal. And America are telling us to fuck off. You're having a joke. It's just like, whose peace deal is this? And who's got what piece of what? It's fraudulent. The whole thing is fraudulent.
Let's read out some messages. People, thank you so much. You've been messaging in. So, we love your involvement, and I think we should read out some.
I feel hopeless. Is there anything we can do for the Palestinian cause? We can't just let people forget this. Talking about it, sharing about it, marching about it, finding any way to publicize what's going on anywhere is doing something about it.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Underneath here, we'll put the link up for this course that actually Denise Goff was talking about it the other day. She did it.
That, yeah.
It's just like I think it's like 3 hours or something, and she said it was really, really interesting. We're going to do it on how best next steps on how to help.
Farida, what is it that's so threatening about Islam, a religion of peace that threatens some? I'm genuinely curious and need to look into it, especially as murderous sayos are okay, and so is Islamophobia.
Well, a lot of that is
so
down to Netanyahu and what he's done and the way he's powered up.
Roxy Voxy, Labour's anti-Semitism course was run by Jewish Labour movement when I did it out of curiosity after Starmer became the leader.
Did you? Interesting.
When you look into our 650 MPs, it's shocking how many Israelis are Israeli Zios, disproportionately, says Arsenal. And I wonder why, because so many people up there, the system works for them because they don't mind a little bit of oppression. They don't mind how they get their wealth, their comfort, and the system working for them. It's as simple as that. It's greed and it's racism. It's greed and racism. Nothing more complicated than that. Joe wants to thank you for yesterday's post. Nads had a little cry watching your Chi-Chi video as we lost Pasha almost 2 years ago.
Oh, sweetheart. It's so hard, isn't it? It really is. So thank you.
Yeah. Lizzie,
and thank you again for all your messages, guys.
Lizzie Russell, I grew up and still am in education in this country. I want more and more to homeschool my children.
We did. We homeschooled ours.
Yeah. It threatens capitalism. Yeah, absolutely. They can claim anti-Semitism palindrome has increased significantly because saying things like free Palestine and having Palestinian flags are officially counted as anti-Semitic in the UK. I've said this all along. Whenever the Telegraph publishes a report full of pomposity and like almost this is a complete fucking fait accompli. Look, anti-Semitism is right. Hang on. Who's conducted the poll and what are the parameters of anti-Semitism? Because if waving a Palestinian flag, not being happy with the genocide being committed ticks the anti-Semitism box, then we're all anti-Semitic. I mean, it's so
fabulous the amount. 60%, I think it is, of 18 to 40-year-olds in America, this would have been unheard of, are now against what Israel are doing. Against it. That is unheard of. So there is a huge panic to gain control of people's thoughts again. That's what it is. This is there's a massive panic going on. But as I say, I think multiple genies are out of the bottle. It's going to be very difficult to get people to sit back to the same brainwashed state that they were. And the thing is, I don't know about you, Mark, the more I think about it, the panic of what they're doing, admitting that they're paying social media influencers $7,000 to post anything that's pro-Israel, this going into schools and universities just for anti-Semitism, not even bothering to mention Islam. All of this is a mad panic. And for anyone that is awake or awakening, it actually drives people further forward of going, wow, so the panic, they're actually panicking. They all are.
They are. I have a slightly more worrying perspective on this, which is I do worry that what we're in day one now of Israeli government attitude to Gazans and Palestinians and people. Yeah, we're basically day one of Israeli rehabilitation, PR rehabilitation.
No, but what I mean is there's more people awake.
What's really important is that rehabilitation, God only knows what way in which that's going to be enacted, because I really worry that we have had a moment of awakening and whatever you want to call it.
I think it's more than a moment. I think it's a movement. No, I don't think it's a moment.
No, but look at what Trump's doing in America. You said it this morning. I really worry about independent media, independent journalists, the ability to even disseminate a contrary thought to the mainstream narrative. Things are becoming really, really frightening. And I think just because the bombs have dropped, which is great for the Palestinians, of course, we are going to now enter a new era of Israeli rehabilitation and normalizing of everything that's happened, retelling of everything that's happened. And it's going to be an aggressive push. And it's all of us have to have our wits about us now more than ever.
That's why you'll notice before this, we never used to say, can you hit the subscribe button every time? We just say it occasionally. Most of the time we'd just forget, wouldn't we? But and to hit the like button, which I hate saying with all of this, not just us, everywhere where people are talking about anything that you're not seeing on mainstream media, because they are, he told us, we're starting to control the algorithm now. So we are worried that at some point we will be completely banned from talking about any of this. But you know, thought control is pretty fucking terrifying, guys, is it not?
And I have to get off air because I've just seen a headline saying Netanyahu says Trump's name will be engraved in the history of humankind.
Yes, a stain
on
humanity.
I can't. It's just not going to be engraved.
Stain.
It's going to be a stain.
Engraved as the stain. An engraved stain is what I would say.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for all of your thoughts and sharing in this. Keep your wits about you.
I'm really thinking that we should do a live video a bit further on with people that can really talk about, you know, their grief around the animals, because I really have been so touched by all of your, you know, your depth of feeling around that as well. And can we say again, thank you so much for all of you that knew nothing of Palestine and have stayed with us when this has shifted so much, Coffee Moaning, and that feels like family, that you've stayed and you've got engaged and you've felt the pain and you come with so many amazing comments and you share back, and it's a huge, huge support for us. So thank you as ever. Thank you. And
also just to say, a mental health download will be landing later. Obviously, it revolves around us losing Chi-Chi and its implications around so many other things in our lives and our mental health. And also just bear with us. We have to look at a couple of other things that are happening today as whether we do. My friend Hannah is very poorly in hospital as well. So the Sunday show, you know, which normally lands on a Monday or a Tuesday, we'll keep you posted, all of you in the members area. Something will land, if not the show, like last week. So stick with us. Stick with us. Thank you. Love you. Take care, guys. Bye.